All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Research Report Spotlight series, which is being brought to you by the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. So the Research Spotlight is a platform that researchers and the broader academic community who wrote about important narratives on African philanthropy and social investment in broader areas of research meet to unpack the findings and to discuss the research, interact with community of practitioners and academics who have engaged on very important and topical issues. So I want to welcome you to today's session, and we want to say that we are very much privileged to have you on board on behalf of the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. I want you to be at home, relax, and let's engage. So this afternoon, we have with us two esteemed colleagues who are going to share research projects that was, spearheaded, or I would say that was actually supported by the center. So first we have our friend and brother who is also an associate of Tchoussi, that is Dr. Chengete Chakamera, who will be sharing important aspects of his work with us. And as a brief introduction, Dr. Chengete Chakamera is a senior lecturer at the University of Johannesburg in the Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management. He is an accomplished academic and researcher with over 8 years of experience in tertiary education. With a strong background in economics and econometrics, Dr. Chakamera has integrated his research interests into transport, logistics, and social investment. Apart from lecturing, Dr. Chakamera also serves as an associate researcher of the Center on African Philanthropy and Social Investment. So that is our first, researcher whose work we are going to be engaging with. And second on the list is our friend, Professor Gerard Tchoussi. I hope I got your name correct, who is an associate professor at the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon, at the Department of Economics and Management. He is responsible for the coordination of the professional Master 1 and 2 degree programs in business competitive intelligence, innovation, entrepreneurship, and the development of SMEs. Professor Tchoussi has conducted many research projects and widely published, including research papers, articles, chapters, books on economics, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy in general. So you are welcome, dear esteemed colleagues. So before we start, just a few guidelines to kickstart the conversation. This webinar is being recorded. We will share some rules regarding this. You would want to ask questions when the time is up in the Q&A. You can post your questions based on how you have engaged with the material. And we want everybody to enjoy and engage respectfully, disagree and agree, introduce your new ideas so that we can all learn from each other. I believe these are work in progress, they are research reports, so we can contribute to them. And then the transcriptions of today's session will be available, but you can also get them using the CC box next to the globe. And I'm sure that the technical team can help us to do that. All right, so I know on the list, we were supposed to start with Professor Gerard, but I don't know what the technical team have arranged. We go with series 2. Is that right? Okay, so because Dr. Chengete had already prepared his slides, so we will go to him and then we will come to you afterwards. Yeah. All right, so to start the session, we are going to look at Dr. Chengete's work, which is a research report that is about, the title is Investigating Philanthropic Undertakings by Indigenous Philanthropic Organizations in Selected African Countries. So Dr. Chengete had done a series of very interesting work on how various philanthropic organizations are formed, how they manage, and how they express their philanthropic activities to improve the lot of many on the African continent. So Dr. Chengete, it's a pleasure to have you here this afternoon. You will have 15 minutes to share your work. And then afterwards, I will ask that we all take notes so that we can ask questions. Afterwards, Professor Gerard will also come, and then he will also share his work. But may I also request that those who have joined us, if you are not from South Africa or wherever you are from, you can introduce yourself so that we know who is here, the organization you work for or you work with. So maybe your name is this, you are from Namibia and you work with this organization, just to get a sense of who is in the room to enrich the conversation. So Dr. Chengete, the floor is now yours. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. Let me share my slides since we don't have much time. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you, all the attendees, and thank you, the organizers of this conference, for giving me an opportunity to present my work. Before I start my presentation, I just want to highlight that it has been a while since I did this study. In the past months or maybe years, I have been facing a number of challenges. So I was actually not active. So this is my first time to be really active. So I'll go through the research that I did in 2021. So we looked at what we call indigenous philanthropic organizations in African countries. So the title is presented towards understanding African philanthropy and philanthropic organizations. So this study focused on 3 countries, DRC, Malawi, and Namibia. So the main purpose of the study was to develop knowledge of the indigenous philanthropic organizations that are in Malawi, Namibia, and DRC. But I also need to mention that it has been difficult. It was difficult to actually get in touch with this organization. So why did we need to do this? Because we found that there was need for us to map up these indigenous philanthropic organizations so that we know who is in which country and what are they doing. That's what we wanted to know. So the objectives were very clear. We wanted to first identify the philanthropic categories that tend to be dominant in Africa. So when we look in those countries, we wanted to know like which category is dominant, and also to determine the complexity with regard to registration of those indigenous philanthropic organizations in their respective countries. The other thing that we wanted to know was also to understand their direction, if they have a direction, and also their decision-making process, like who is involved in decision-making. And also, we sought to determine the financial capacity of those organizations. The other objective was to understand how those organizations give out funds, and also the major activities that they fund, and also the key groups that receive their financial support. That's what we wanted to know as well. And then we also wanted to determine the current donor interest, like do we have specific areas that tend to be more sponsored at the moment? That's what we wanted to check. So as a research problem, we realized that there was lack of knowledge regarding indigenous philanthropic organizations and what they do. So even myself, when I did this research, it was quite difficult, even with the research assistant that I managed to work with. For us to find these organizations was a challenge. Most of them are smaller organizations. They don't have even a website. So in order, now when you try now to find them, like to know these organizations, some of them, they are church-based. So they are small, they don't have a website, but they are doing a lot of groundwork. So this is something that we said we want to know from an African philanthropic perspective. The way that we do our philanthropy in Africa is not really the same across when we compare with other regions or continents. Ours, it could be small but significant. So it depends on how we look at it. So this is what we realize. There's a lot of work that is done on the ground, but these organizations are very difficult to find, or actually to get them answer the questionnaires that you give them. It's very difficult. Some of them, they even don't want their work to be known. So those are some of the challenges that we are still facing. But why addressing this issue? Because most importantly, if we can map up them, if we can know them and what they do, it can also help potential beneficiaries to easily check, right? When they want to connect or to find organizations that can meet their needs, they know where to go. And then the organizations themselves, it will also be easier for them to raise funds when we know who they are and what they do. So that is something that is very important that we said we need to know this organization. It's important for them as well. And the other issue there is the issue of moral hazard. So that is something that may be actually be dealt with or minimized when it comes to our indigenous philanthropic organizations. So there is an argument that is there that says when it comes to these non-African non-African funders or donors, when they give what they give to us, right? Sometimes they exert a strong influence on how us as Africans we should use those those donations, or maybe we should operate. So that philanthropic or that donation or philanthropic gesture that comes with a hidden agenda is not really sustainable. So these are the moral hazards that we are talking about. Some of them, like now, they are talking about trying to influence the regime change, but we don't go there. But they may actually have specific agendas. So if we promote our own philanthropic organizations and then we promote them, if they can work well, we will be able also not to rely on foreign funding. And in a way, we can also minimize those other conditions that come with this, some of these donations. Then also, there is also an issue of improving effectiveness. So there's an argument that is there also in the literature that says these African philanthropic organizations, when we compare them with non-African philanthropic organizations, we realize that they tend to know better the communities and what they need. So the methodology, we applied a quantitative approach where a questionnaire was developed. So it was a fully structured questionnaire. The data was analyzed using a quantitative method, and it was a cross-sectional research design because data was collected at one point in time. And as for the target population or the unit of analysis, we focus on indigenous philanthropic organizations. And then the sampling technique, we use purposely. So we wanted only those ones. So we had to find them first on the internet and then we approached them. Then the sample size, as you can see there, even though we hoped for more, but we only managed to have 59 in Malawi, 21 in Namibia, 35 in DRC, which is, which I can say a major weakness of this study. Then as for the results, Dr. Emmanuel, please tell me the time as well so that I can know how many minutes are left.
Very well. You still have time, about 8 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So as for the results, so we looked at a number of things that we wanted to know regarding this philanthropic organization. So to know who they are, we did this by trying to do a desktop analysis where we search on the website. Some of them, with my research assistants, they were able also to get referrals to say there is also another philanthropic organization there. That's how we actually identify those that we surveyed. But even though we identified slightly more than what we have here, some of them, they did not respond to our questionnaires. Even my research assistants tried their level best to get the responses, but they didn't. So these are the results. So when it comes to philanthropic categories, we realize that in Malawi, the dominant categories there were charitable, trust, and then community foundations and independent foundations. As you can see there, I'm not going I'm not going to go into detail because of time, but what we have there is just philanthropic infrastructure support organization. So that is an abbreviation. It stands for Philanthropic Infrastructure Support Organization. So these are still less in all these countries that we surveyed. As you can see there, yes, in Namibia, it's slightly higher than in Malawi, but they are still lesser. But we have community foundations and charitable trust, and then others that are also dominant in Namibia. Then when it comes to DRC, we see again they indicated that other, and then we have charitable trust, and then we have those philanthropic infrastructure, philanthropic infrastructure support organization, PISO. So we see that in DRC we actually have slightly more compared to the other two countries. So in terms of complexity, we also wanted to know how complex it is for this organization to get registered. So we see that in Malawi, it was difficult to tell whether it is or difficult, as you can see there. On the side with ease, on the side with the difficult, we have slightly almost the same, even though it's slightly different. But the majority says it's neither easy or difficult. But one thing that we realized that all of them, they have indicated, or a majority, they have indicated that the registration will be complete within 4 months, as you can see there. Then we see the same picture there in Namibia. The majority says it's complete within 4 months. And then we still see again, the majority of organizations are indicating that it's neither easy or difficult, but we see that we also have the same number of those who are saying difficult and those who are saying it is. So again, there was no clear cut here. Then when it comes to DRC, we see that we have a number of them that says it is when we compare with those that says it's difficult, right? So that's what we see. And we see again, the majority that say it occurs within 4 months from the time that we started the registration process. Then the other issue that we wanted to know was, do these organizations have a vision? Do they have a mission? So we see that the majority of those organizations, they actually have a vision and also a mission. And then we also wanted to know, okay, who is involved in decision making? So there are key decisions that are involved there. So we wanted to know, like, who are involved when they make those charity policy decisions. So we see that in Malawi, the top 3 were the directors, founders, and the board. Then in Namibia, we have the top 3 there were the board, and then we also have here a committee. So this is a committee with the one member of the organization. Then we have the program manager also involved there, like in the top 3 were involved. Again, I'm not going to comment about vision and mission. The majority of them, they said they have. But there were a few organizations without a mission and also without a vision. Then in the, so this is the Malawi. Am I going backwards? So this is the summary. So this is the summary of everything that I have said so far concerning the decision making. So I'm not going again to time go through each, but just take note of what I have highlighted there to say these are the 2 groups that are mainly involved. These are the major groups that are mainly involved in each country when it comes to the decision, when they make a policy decision, who is involved, right? So we see that in DRC and in Malawi, the top 2, they are the board and also the founder are involved. But in Namibia, it's indicated that the program managers also get involved a lot. Then the other thing that we wanted to know were the finances. So the finances, generally speaking, we realize that the majority are actually suffering in terms of their financial capacity. They don't have bigger finances, and that is also reflected in their expenditure. They are not able to spend a lot. So as you can see from those 2 figures, we have the majority of organizations that have the low revenue and that we also low annual expenditure. So they can't spend what they don't have. So then we look again to in Malawi, where do they get the funds? How do they mobilize the funds? So in Malawi, we see that the top there is the donors, the grants, and the fundraising. Those are the top 3. Sorry. But we have a bit of income generation, which is a good indicator because income generation is very good for sustainability. Then when it comes to Namibia, again, we see that this is the same. So I'm not going to repeat the same picture. In most of these countries, the 3 of them, they have, most of them, they have low revenue, they have the low expenditure. Then when it comes to where they get funds, again, we still hear the donors are on top. Fundraising is also part of the key source of funds, and then the grant. We see the same when it comes to DRC here in this next slide. Right. So in DRC, it's slightly the same. We now have member contribution is actually the dominant there, and then grants and income generation. So income generation in DRC is relatively higher when we compare with the other 2. But what is also common across these 3 countries that the contribution that is coming from the government is very minor. So it's actually the lowest source of funds. So I summarize. So this is the summary. I have already talked about how the funds and then where they get the funds. So here we're going to talk about how they communicate, right? How do they communicate the funds? So we realize that most organizations in Malawi and DRC use the head hunting for relevant partners, followed by a call for proposals. So they do that, they make an advert in the media. So when they want to when they want a potential beneficiary, when they see that, then they can apply, and then the process is initiated. Then in Namibia, most organizations indicated that it's none of what we have specified in the questionnaire, but we also see that on second there was call for proposals through advertising. Then the least used method was call for proposals on the website. So this again goes in line with most organizations, they don't get websites. And then in the countries, most organizations accepted first for support through written proposal. So when you want support, you write a proposal, and then that proposal will be evaluated by a board or a management committee. Some considered direct conduct, where the organization can talk to underprivileged communities, so that they actually approach those underprivileged communities, then they see how they can help them. Then when it comes to the issue of how they spend money, so as you can see there, we see that the majority in Malawi, or the major activities that are being supported in Malawi, we see that there's education, there's health, there's humanitarian, child protection, agriculture. So those are the key that are being supported. Then let's check the other country, which is still in Malawi. As they support those activities, how do they do that? How do they make payment? How do they support them? So most of them, they say it's direct payment. They pay directly. And also they can use scholarships as the second means. And then collaborations was also part of that. And then the recipients, when it comes to the recipients, the groups that receive the majority of these funds, we see that in Malawi, it's children, women, orphans, and youth. Then in Namibia, we also see again education, humanitarian, health, and child protection, almost the same as Malawi, are the major activities that are being supported. And then when it comes to payment, how do they pay? We see that there's direct payment, there's also collaboration. And then the main groups that receive funds, we have children, orphans, youth, and women. So now let's now compare with the DRC. Now, something that is different here with the DRC, we have gender promotion on top. So the other two, we don't have that. So gender promotion is supported a lot in DRC, and then we have health, child protection, and agriculture. Then when it comes again, DRC is slightly different from the other two. Here, when it comes to instruments that they use to give money, they have foundation grants that they use. Collaborations is also there, direct payments on the third. And then who is supported the most? Women, youth, children, and orphans. So I'm not going to go through the summary, but that's what we have seen there in the interest of time.
Yeah, so if you can start winding, yeah, thank you.
Yes. All right, so let's go quickly to the recommendations. So based on what I have done, so we came up with this recommendation that the African governments should play a major role in the philanthropic sector, especially when it comes to the issue of registration. It doesn't make sense to make it a bit tighter. So they should find a way to make it easier for these organizations to register. Then the other thing is that there is a need for more philanthropic infrastructure support organizations, which are the PISO, because we have seen that we still have very few of them. So we need them. They are a very important platform. They create a very good link with the other, like they make sure that they create a network. They are important for the network of all the philanthropic organizations, like what CAPS is doing. So that is something that we need. We need more of those. Then promoting corporate foundations in African countries. So this is important in the view that what we have seen is that most of these organizations, they struggle in terms of financing. They can't really raise enough funds to support their funding, their philanthropic activities. So if we promote corporate foundations, we know that their sources of funds will be based on a certain business that is going on. So they get funds from there. Then in view of small annual revenue and expenditures, it is important to develop and enhance collaboration. So we have seen that some of these organizations already, they indicated the issue of collaboration. So collaborations are important, but now what we need more is collaborations among the philanthropic organizations. So when they want to sponsor something, it's important for them to come together. If they have the same interest, then they can join hands and do it together. Philanthropic organizations should pay attention to sustainability of the support they provide. So especially when they support agriculture and entrepreneurship, they need to make sure that there's a clear follow-up to make sure that the funds that have been provided to the beneficiaries were used as intended, and that those beneficiaries, they become sustainable. It doesn't make sense to continuously support the same person again and again. Then just to wrap up, the last recommendation that I have here, it is important that these philanthropic organizations have reserves. So these reserves will help them in terms of emergence, like what we've seen with the COVID-19. Then they can, instead of closing their philanthropic activities, they can still maybe rely on those reserves to make sure that the business is sustained maybe for some months before things Then for sustainability purpose, philanthropic organizations also consider income generation. So income generation source of funds is very important. There are organizations that are doing that already. They have some activities that can help them to get funds, and then they can also channel those funds to their beneficiaries. While many philanthropic organizations tend to support education, health, child protection, and agriculture, as we saw on those graphs, it is vital also to consider environmental issues, right? So we see that things such as environment, especially now with the climate change, threat for climate change, they need more of funding. So we still need more of funds on that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chengete. That was a very insightful presentation, scaling and describing the various philanthropic behaviors or actions that occur across these three countries. What I want to do is that maybe we want to take Prof. Gerard, and then we can combine also when we zoom into the discussion, it is more engaging because I see some of the things that you say being reinforced by Prof, who also did a country level study, looking at the Francophone and Northern African countries. So let's allow Prof to come, and then we will have that conversation. So please, kindly, for those who have joined us, you are welcome. Kindly make your questions ready so that when the time is up, we can engage. And I would say that Prof. Gerard, try to keep to the time so that we can have a lot of time to engage. Thank you very much. So you may share your screen now, and then we can have it. So the second presentation is from Prof. Gerard, who is going to present some preliminary findings about literature review related to philanthropy in 6 African countries. And the countries are Algeria, Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, like our first speaker also included, Morocco, Senegal, and Tunisia. So these are the countries that he focused on. We have the pleasure of having Prof speak to us and present his work. Thank you very much, Prof.
Okay. Thank you very much, Zolani. Merci beaucoup. My presentation is about a research report written 1 or 2 years before on the literature review related to philanthropy in 6 African countries: Algeria, Cameroon, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, Morocco, Senegal, and Tunisia. And as we see, these 6 countries, 6 African countries are located in 3 different regions. We have 3 countries of the North Africa, Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. We have 2 countries from Central Africa, Cameroon, and Democratic Republic of Congo. And we have 1 country from West Africa. But these countries are linked with languages, with some languages. The 6 countries use French, are French speaking. And some of these countries use English, like Cameroon, which is called in Cameroon. Cameroon use both English and French as official language. We have Algeria, Morocco, Tunisia, Senegal. These countries use Arab countries. The countries in the northern of Africa are located near country using Portuguese and Spanish. So some population in these countries used to speak these two foreign languages. And also, as we are in Africa, we have local, so we have African languages. So in these different countries, these 6 different countries, we have also different modal tongues, modal language. In GRC, we have many and some language we are principal. In Cameroon also, in Senegal, we have this modern language. And we will see that these languages and location of countries will influence the type of philanthropy. So we have, with these 6 countries, we have religions who have we will get influence. We influence the types of philanthropic categories in these countries. We have the Christians, we have the Islamism, we have African countries, religions, animism. So we have the African practices. We have also the new religions coming from abroad, like from America. In the case of DRC, we have many types of religions. And these religions have going to influence mainly, and they have to affect the combined effect on the location of the country, the language, and the religions. And these impacts act directly the types of philanthropic organization which emerge in these 6 African countries. These philanthropic organizations are individuals, community organizations, are religious organizations, and organizations from diaspora. There are also corporate organizations, or corporate philanthropy organization. And these organizations mobilize many kinds of funds from individuals, from communities, from churches, from diaspora. And this diaspora also use what we call a crowdfundings, which are participating fundings, who are now organized also by diaspora and by local population to finance entrepreneurship and to finance agricultural or silviculture activities. Culturally, African population have a rich culture in the way of giving, sharing goods, sharing works, and sharing money. That's what philanthropy is very, very important in Africa. The objective of this literature review was to present the ecosystem, the philanthropy ecosystem of these 6 African countries: Algeria, Cameroon, Democratic Republic of Congo, Morocco, Senegal, and Tunisia. We try to do it in the report, and we have categorized many kinds of organizations who interfere with philanthropy organization. For example, for the regulation, in these 6 countries, we have many types of services which we are using to legalize, for example, the philanthropic organization. We have, for example, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We have Ministry of Local Administration. We have Ministry of Public Administration. So we have interference with these 3, 4, or 5 kinds of ministries in these countries who manage the philanthropic organization. And here the philanthropic organization can be individual foundations, community, from churches, or from diaspora. We can also have cross-borders, this kind of cross-border organization of the philanthropics. So that's the presentation of that ecosystem. We can have it, better have it in the report. Precisely this literature review explicitly asks why and how individuals, high noble worth individuals, for example, use their resources to realize or to help countries, to help local territories to realize their mission or their vision. That's the main question of this research paper. And the methodology used here are both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative because CAPC helped us to conduct a questionnaire with these countries, with all the 6 countries are with some of these organizations. And we also use quantitative method to identify the effect of this local organization on this philanthropic organization on local development. We use the case, for example, of Cameroon. We will present it later. The data have been obtained through internet. We have administered those questionnaires to these organizations, philanthropy organization. And we use also documents and some data, secondary data. For the case of Cameroon, we have analyzed empirically the efficiency of individual givings of, we have analyzed the efficiency of some individual givings to orphanage on the economic development. And the study used econometric method. We use data environment analysis to obtain some results and some recommendation. And the principal recommendation here was to help orphanage, to help private foundations, and to help public organizations, to help philanthropic organizations to be more engaged and to ameliorate the living condition of population. We are living with less than $2. And at the end of this study of the research, we have identified one limit. The one limit is that less very few authors in Africa are working on the question of philanthropy. So if Tchoussi can help to increase the number of researchers related on this topic, it can be using the language. We have many languages using in Africa. We have Portuguese, Spanish, we have mother tongues, African languages. We have no researchers and research related on African language. So we can increase, for example, authors working on philanthropy with our language, our African language. And one of the result of the study was to contribute and to share, to contribute to increase the number of this literature related on philanthropy in Africa. And the recommendation of, lastly, the recommendation of this research paper is, was particularly to ask high level wealth individuals, so philanthropists, individual philanthropists, so has the footballers, has the musician who have many foundations to help orphanage, for example, or to help foundation working on the sector of education, of wealth, of health, of agriculture, entrepreneurship, and environmental sector. So Zolani and dear participants, that's what we did in this research paper. And
thank you.
The paper is in Tchoussi. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Gerard, for that presentation. Yes, so I think the paper has been shared in the, if you don't have, you can ask the research team. On that note, thank you very much, sir, for that. And also, sorry about the initial confusion regarding whether to use English or French. Obviously, we in the South and in the West need to learn a little bit more French so that we can all learn and understand each other. And I do agree with you that there's a huge amount of people, number of people who speak French. So there has to be a fair balance. And also, if not, we need to have somebody to sort of interpret when we meet such situation. But we heard you, and we have both works. So I will now invite both Chengete and Prof. First, I will ask one or two questions, but please keep your answers brief so that we can allow those who have joined us to also engage with what they heard. Now, Dr. Chengete, my question would be that the first one would be, what informed your decision to choose those philanthropies organizations that you focused on? That would be my first question. And then my second question, in fact, it was interesting to find that in all the three countries, whereas Malawi and Namibia was focusing on education as a primary, the main type of philanthropic support, DRC was rather on gender issues. Is there any cultural or historical context to this? Whilst you were interviewing them, did it come out, or whilst you were writing up your report, did some few things stand out for you? Why? And I think maybe Gerard can also comment on that. I don't know when you were doing your review, whether you found anything like that, since both of you focus on DRC. why the switch when it came to DRC? And in fact, DRC education was, I think, about 4th or 5th in the ranking. Any comments on that, Chengete?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Emmanuel. So the first question there about the choice of the country. So there was no specific, I can say when we started the project with the Philanthropic, we had like a number of countries, many countries, and many researchers. So we had like distribute, say you take that, you take that, you take that, right? That's what we had to do. So these countries, they were not actually the initial countries, but the one that I wanted to take, then they were already taken, like South Africa, it was Melody as country. So I had to take this, right? And then the other thing, we also looked at, for example, when you look at these countries, you see that in my country, we have DRC, which is a French speaking. So that was going to be a challenge for me as well, even as a researcher, right?
Yeah.
But if you see the other two countries, Malawi and Namibia, they are English speaking. That's why I also need to consider those two.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
And then was there any decision when you went into the countries? What informed your choice? Because in the end, you said that the philanthropies, they should try to focus on environment, sustainability issues. So I want to go back to my question. When you go to those countries, what informed your decision to choose those involving education, those involving health, those involving different aspects? After which we had to now, we want to consider if they can involve more in environment.
All right. So yeah, I think Professor Gerard will help me with the other question that you asked first, like why gender came up in DRC a lot when the other countries are more on education and then health, those other things. So what I have realized from my search, not directly from the content, because it was a closed questionnaire, so would not go deeper to like understand why, right? So from the literature, when I do the analysis of results, I realized that there were actually a number of studies that were talking about things such as the women, especially the women in DRC. We are far behind when it comes to equality in terms of opportunities that they have. So these organizations, they tend to push to improve the status of women. That's what I found.
Okay. And then my question about gender issues in DRC compared to education and the other, quick comment on that before I read the question that is on the chat room also for you.
Okay, so this one, I don't think I got the question, right?
No, what I mean is that, when you showed where the foundations focus their attention on.
Yes.
Number one in Malawi and Namibia was education.
Yes.
But when it came to DRC, education was, I think, 5th or 4th. But their primary focus was on gender issues. So gender empowerment, women empowerment, I believe, and all those things. And I'm asking, is there any context to that? Why do we see that type of focus?
Okay, yeah, that's what it's almost linked to what I said, like concerning DRC, what I saw from the picture, there is an issue about the women in DRC or the girls in DRC. Most of them, they are being exploited at the moment. So they are trying their level best distance organizations to try to place some balance there. But it's not that they are not doing the other things like they also do that.
But and that's where their primary focus is.
Yes, and also I need to acknowledge the issue of the sample as well here, right? Because maybe the bigger sample size, you may actually be shocked that the results are different.
Okay, thank you very much. Before I come to Prof. Gerard, there's a question in the chat room. It says that based on your research, it's apparent that across the 3 countries, the government is the least contributor in supporting philanthropic ventures. Do you have any recommendation on how the government can be more involved in their support? So in terms of Namibia, Malawi, and DRC. Yes, the second question is more general, but if you can address that, and how should the government get involved and support these ones?
Okay, so when it comes to support, when in my recommendation that it only make like in terms of financial support, I left it open to say they also support in terms of the issue of registration. It's something that is in the hands of the government. They need to make sure that it's quicker to register a philanthropic organization. Then when it comes to other support, like other support like financial, it's a big one, especially to rely on the government, given the government in Africa, they are also suffering in terms of finance. So it's a bit tricky to see them getting more involved in actually funding this philanthropic organization, like support.
Directly. Okay. Maybe policy-wise, and also making it easier for donors to support them, and also passing laws to make their work easier, I suppose.
Yes.
I think let me go to Prof. Gerard, and then I'll come back to you, and then we'll look at, there's a question in the chat box, but I'll come. Prof. Gerard, thank you very much. I did read your work also, and I find it very insightful. Now, my question is that when you look at all these 6 countries, what is different amongst them in terms of the type of philanthropy that they practice? For example, when you look at the more African, those going to the north, you sort of lend yourself to Sharia and some terminologies that influence how they practice philanthropy. When you come to Africa Central, you also see some level of differences. What was striking for you when you were reviewing the whole philanthropic landscape in these countries? If you can, in a brief manner.
But briefly, with these six countries, the type of philanthropies are kind of different. The main difference is founded on the religion. In the North Africa, from Algeria to Morocco and to Tunisia, we have with the religion a kind of givings, zakat, wakaf. We have sometimes fundamental for the Muslim. The Muslims have to give every Friday, for example. They have to go to church, pray, and give. After they give, to poor. And officially, they have to share a part of their revenue, to give the part of our revenue to the building, to the church problem, or to help the poor in the church. So there's a difference with that is a main difference with non-Muslim countries like Cameroon, who have Christian, dare I say, who have many more Christians. So the rigidity of giving, it is not imposed, but they have to give a part of their revenue to poor in the church, or to build the church.
In their religious
what we call dim. So yes, and in Senegal is like Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia. But there are some Christians who have to also give money to build church and to help poor. If we go to community philanthropy, we have a difference with Northern, West, and Central Africa, because the culture is not the same. The culture, the Muslim culture is different for the culture of Central Africa, because here we have traditional kind of giving, traditional giving, and we have giving from abroad, the kind of giving imported. So imported from abroad, with the culture. So we look it with Muslim, we have Christianism. They have the fund, the type of raising fund is not like the type of raising fund with communities.
Community-based philanthropies.
Yes. So
okay.
there are many types of, and also with the northern, the countries in the northern of Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, they have many diasporas abroad. So the diaspora has also to come and share their goods, the times, and the money with the local population. So, so the diaspora way of giving is different for the diaspora way of giving of Southern African or West Africa. Though we have also Senegalese who are many abroad. In Senegal, for example, they have a bank who we have a ministry, especially for migrants, for diaspora.
Wow,
in
in
Cameroon and in DRC, that mechanism do not exist.
Okay. So obviously there's a lot of several country differences when it comes to the giving pattern. But what I hear is that, and I see in your paper, you actually catalog them in terms of individual philanthropy, community philanthropy, religious philanthropy, and corporate philanthropy. So it sort of helps us to see how, if you move from one country to the other, you sort of see especially regional differences. And this is expressed through the type of dominant religious beliefs that is there. And I think that brings me to a question in the chat box for Prof. Gerard. So you mentioned, and I think I want to say that you did touch on it a little bit, but maybe once I'm done, you can give a brief comment on that. You mentioned how all the selected countries for your study have different languages and religions, which affect the giving based on those differences. And he says that, he or she says that, can you please expand on how those differences impact philanthropic efforts across sectors? So he or she is looking at the sector. Is there, and by sector, I want to believe the type of interventions like we saw in Chengete's one, education, health, gender issues, and those things. Is there any differences in the type of giving and where these monies are spent?
Okay, if you take just a question of education, with countries in the Northern Africa, they are near, for example, France, they are near a country like France. So from Morocco or from Algeria or for Tunisia to go France, it is 1 or 2 hours.
Okay.
So diaspora, so Moroccans or Algerians or Tunisians used to go and be educated in France and come back quickly, and can come back quickly and help who are in the need of education. And now if we take a country like Cameroon or like DRC, these two countries are far from France, 6 or 7 or 8 hours. So if we use the same mechanism, it cannot be easy to capture the increase, the help of diaspora in the sector of education. But if you take another sector like entrepreneurship, Central African, DRC and Cameroon have migrants used to be more and more entrepreneurship, because they go abroad and bring back some goods, goods in their country, and create their enterprise on this kind of good. The second the second-hand good, for example, entrepreneurship. So these countries are very, very quick to create this kind of enterprise. If you take a country like Senegal or a country like Morocco or Tunisia or Algeria near abroad, here the legislation is very different. Yes, the entrepreneurs can't again create this kind of enterprises in this in the second-hand goods, because the legislation is nearing the French legislation in the using of in the age of goods. So you see that there is a difference in that two sectors. Yes.
Yeah. So contextually, it allows for different practices and focus areas. And I think I agree, like you said, the proximity of Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco to Europe compared to Central or Western Africa or even Southern Africa, it is going to be very different. That influences the type of philanthropy they practice there. Thank you very much, Prof. Gerard. Now, let me ask Chengete one question, Dr. Chengete, and then I'll open the floor for colleagues. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. If you have to make a comment, you can also raise your hand, or you can still post your question in the chat box, and then I'll ask. But somebody is asking, what is the CAPSI's draft strategy on increasing the number of researchers and authors working on African philanthropy? And for that, I would say that one of them is to become a research associate, and you can talk to Zolani, or you can go on the website of CAPSI. If there is any area that you are interested in, you can make recommendation. You can submit a proposal, brief draft proposal, and say, maybe I'm based in Madagascar, I'm based in whichever country, Ghana, Nigeria, and I want to be part of this great project that CAPSI is doing. So that will answer the question. And we are all, I'm an associate of CAPSI, and I also do a couple of work for them. So you are welcome to engage. Now, Dr. Chengete, you talked about the concept of localization. I think is very insightful. And Prof. Gerard also talks about community philanthropy as one of the strands of philanthropy. In what way did you experience firsthand the whole idea of localization? And how would you juxtapose it to some of our dominant theories of philanthropy and giving in general? I think that will be my question, and then we will open the floor. The concept of localization is very, very key, especially when we are thinking about community philanthropy. How would you respond to that?
Okay, thank you. I came up with this point about localization from my literature search. So it was actually an argument given there to say, when you look at our own homegrown philanthropic organizations, they tend to understand the communities better, right? So they, in most cases, they are in touch with the community. And when you look at the organizations that we surveyed here, most of them, they are not like big organizations like Red Cross and so on. They are smaller organizations, but they are there in the community, and they know what the community is prioritizing at the moment in terms of their needs, right? So that is the argument of localization, to say the first thing is about the knowledge that they have about the community's needs. Then the second one is that they can also avoid over-reliance on foreign funding. Remember what happened with the COVID-19, right? COVID-19, when the funds were now cut from the foreign nations, it becomes a challenge for many other organizations to support their activities, because they were actually over-relying on receiving donations from abroad. But now, if we can grow our own local philanthropic organizations and we nurture them, then they will be in the best position to promote what you call like they will be sustainable in the long term, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea of localization.
Okay, great. I think it's a very important concept in philanthropy. So, and not only that, the whole idea that even when Western big philanthropic organizations enter a particular community, it is important that it is easy for them to work with locally established philanthropy so that they can make maximum impact. And that's something that I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah, what is fun in terms of that one, that point, whilst we are still on that one, from what I saw in the literature, they actually argue to say when it comes to local non-governmental organizations and then those that are foreign non-governmental organizations, when it comes like to support, how they support this philanthropic organization, they say it's surprising that even our own local philanthropists, they tend to support foreign organizations than they support our own local organizations. So I still need to go deeper in that to see why is that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's something that is of interest to me, like to see why, let's say I am a local philanthropist, then I tend to go and support other organizations from external than the organization that I have in my country.
Yeah.
So I used to see that.
Yeah, you did mention that actually in your closing, how they can sort of facilitate networking amongst themselves and support themselves if they want to be sustainable in the long run.
Yes.
And it's very important. How can local philanthropies work together for common social good? Very good.
Yes.
So Fatana is asking this question, and maybe Prof. Gerard, you can comment on that, and then we open the floor. Is it in the multi-country studies done by both presenters, does the country's GDP impact the level of philanthropy, or it doesn't really matter? Meaning that are relatively more affluent countries endowed with higher levels of giving to the needy, or there is no obvious association? So, Prof. Gerard, in your writing, you did mention how philanthropy in Africa is practiced differently compared to more affluent countries. Can we say that a country's GDP compared to, let's say, even when you're looking at Morocco or Tunisia and Algeria, compared to DRC, Senegal, and the other country that you found, do we see differences in terms of how they give? And why can we, how can we attribute that to the GDP of the country? Thank you.
As I said earlier, the differences from these countries also are about how this helps these givings from a philanthropic organization are calculated and are used in the GDP of the country.
Yeah.
With this Francophone country, you know, they are very linked with France. And France are used to directly help this country in their budget. So the giving are using from some Western organization, philanthropy organization, to develop local philanthropic organizations. So in the budget, in the GDP, it is not easy to calculate, to see the amount of what France have given. But if we go to America, for example, from Canada and from US, if US want to help these countries, they ask a legalized philanthropy organization to use the dollars they give to come and spend in the local countries with a local organization, philanthropy organization, to develop a sector they have identified to be developed.
Okay.
So we can't directly see the amount of philanthropy money on the GDP or in the budget, not directly, but the support, there's a basket fund needed for these countries to support or to finance their budget. There's a basket fund.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Chengete, any comment on that question? Can we link the GDP to, like you thank you, Prof. Gerard. Yeah.
Okay, for me, it takes us back to what Prof was saying just now. Are we talking about our only recipe as Africans when it comes to giving? Or we are talking about the borrowed Western culture of giving, right? So if we are talking about the borrowed Western culture, that's where you see that when the US is in crisis, they also limit their donations to these developing countries. So we see an association there. Their economic activity, when it is booming, they may also be more generous, right?
Yes.
But when it comes to our own African, the one that we really need to understand, even up to now, we haven't really get to the core of what we call African philanthropy. Because what constitutes it, that's what we want to define. We want to define this philanthropy from an African perspective. Those people in the community, in the village, how do they do it? So we don't see correlation between GDP and how they help each other, how they do those philanthropic activities. You can't see them, right? Yeah, that's what we see. Yes, they accept hardships. Like I give you an example of a country like Zimbabwe. It has been facing challenges for a number of years now since they were under sanctions. But when you go there, there's a lot of giving that is happening, irrespective of the level of the GDP.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I will agree. I think in one of the writings, either Prof. Gerard or Dr. Chengete, you mentioned that when times are hard in Africa, that's when we see a lot of giving happening. Whereas in the West, we see drop in giving. So we need more research. And I think that the work that the two of you have done is to pave the way, to document, number one, what is happening, and also to even have enriched engagements like we're doing now, so that we don't use the Western conception of giving, of philanthropy, to sort of describe everything. And in fact, within African context, we are still different. Like you mentioned, Zimbabwe, you go to Ghana, you go to Cameroon, you come to South Africa, we see some nuanced level of giving. And that's what we are, the CAPSI is seeking to bridge. How do we document all these types of giving in the process? Please, thank you, gentlemen, for that. We still have about 7 minutes to go. I don't know if anybody in the audience wants to ask a question. You can raise your hand and then we'll call you. The technical team should help me. If somebody raises the hand, you want to comment, you want to ask a question. We have about 6 minutes to go. We will use that for that purpose. So the floor is open. Okay, I see that somebody has posted. Yes, so the CAPSI research reports, there's a link in the chat room. You can follow the link and then access all the reports free of charge, so that we can read more on these and learn from our colleagues. Anybody with a question? Okay, whilst we wait for the question, Prof. Gerard, you did mention one key thing that I picked from your work was regulation, especially in the Northern Africa. You mentioned that regulation was a major problem, and much of the foundation work actually emanates from the government and not the people. I'm curious to know the whole setup in the North, and how regulation can be sort of minimized or lessened so that there's more activeness in the philanthropy that is practiced up North?
What we informally observe in the northern countries is that many funds from abroad are directly used with churches.
Okay.
Yes, many funds. And these funds are from the Arabic countries, just up the Africa. And
okay.
Sometimes these funds are from the funds from petrol. And you know, behind the petrol, there is a backshish. So you can put this kind of giving directly on the budget, the country budget, or on the GDP. It is not easy.
Okay.
And also we observe informally that many towns have been developed with this kind of farms in that countries. And you can't put it directly on the annual budget or on the GDP. You can't. But you just see that they have built this year, for example, in the sector of education, they have built this kind of secondary school, primary school, tertiary school. And if you ask the government that, what are the sources, the main sources of these funds, the government can't tell you really the origin of these funds. So, and the institution, the educational institution are non-profitable institutions.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And I think, as I said, both studies actually complement each other, and there's a lot we can learn, both the similarities and the differences that exist amongst these two countries. I will give the last opportunity for our two presenters just to give us a general conclusion and where you see this research to go in the future. I think there are directions for future research that the two of you are considering. What direction are you looking at pursuing? I will start with Dr. Chengete, and then you can end with your closing comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. Yeah, for me, what I see, we still have a lot to do with what we have done so far. It's just a minor thing that we have done, because look at Africa, it's a large continent. We have many countries, and we have only looked at few countries. Even if let's say we cover all of them, but our sample size, it's worrying, right? So you see that we haven't really did like great work when it comes to these researches. So the way forward, we need a qualitative study. That's the way forward for me. You asked the question that actually, like, why do these organizations now tend to support gender promotion, gender equality, or maybe gender activity, philanthropic activities, right? So because it was a closed questionnaire, we did not ask them. So if we have like interviews, a qualitative study, interviews, we will be able to get like results. And there are even other organizations that do not want to be known. That's surprising. They don't want to be out there. For them, they take it as if it's something that they should not do, right? They just hope, and then they look the other way, right? So we need to do interviews. That's the way forward. We need to go into TikTok. And then we talked about as Africans, what is philanthropy as Africans? That is still the question that we need to answer. What constitutes philanthropy in the African context? So that you cannot confuse the African way and then the borrowed Western way. Yeah.
Very good, very good. What is philanthropy from an African perspective?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And also the type of research that we need. So if you are here and you are thinking about research area angle, Dr. Chengete is making us aware that qualitative research provides more enriched insights, and we can probe further things that quantitative research may not be able to offer. Thank you, Dr. Chengete. Prof. Gerard, your parting comments and direction for future research.
Okay, thank you very much. My first recommendation for future research is to address research on ecosystem, philanthropy ecosystem in Africa. In all countries, if we have a database with this ecosystem, philanthropy ecosystem, or philanthropic ecosystem organization in philanthropy for all the countries in Africa, it will help for the future.
Okay.
I think Tchoussi is working with some English-speaking countries in Africa in this concept. So if we can, increase the number of countries, it will be better. It will be better addressed. And also, this is my recommendation since 2 or 3 years, how Tchoussi can make to work with non-English countries in Africa, non-English countries, because there is a lack of knowledge.
Yeah.
A huge lack of knowledge. Last week, I traveled to Brazzaville in a conference on entrepreneurship. I used the concept of philanthropy. No more than 3 or 4 participants accept or are there to accept this concept. In French, philanthropic is what we call responsabilité sociale d'entreprise, corporate social responsibilities. Francophone use just to stop in corporate social responsibility, or philanthropy go far from corporate social responsibility. So if we can address more than this.
Fun. I agree. Thank you very much, Prof. Gerard and Dr. Chengete, for such an insightful conversation this afternoon. Obviously, we have learned a lot, even just from these two. And like you said, Prof. Gerard, we need more people from the Francophone region. And as an associate of Tchoussi, having been very close to the work that Tchoussi is doing, I want to encourage you to recruit for us associates who are French speakers. I know you are very active when it comes to the Francophone, and just a few of you. We want more from that region. So if we can get quality scholars from that region, I'm sure Zolani and the others, Prof. Becky is not here, but I believe that he will see the transcript and we'll be more than happy to sort of work with them and to have them in our meetings, so that if we want to speak in French, you can freely speak in French and somebody can interpret and make the conversation more enriching. So I want to and also thank the team that is behind this research spotlight series. It is very needed. And I believe that the questions that came and the reflections gives us room to, see where we are moving African philanthropy and social investment to. So thank you all, and thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the technical team, the communication team behind this whole project. And we look forward to seeing you all in our next session.
Okay, next time.
Thank you. Next time. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.